Meeting to order. Councilman McHugh, even more appropriate than ever, being this close to Veterans Day, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Sure thing, Mayor. And Marine Corps birthday tomorrow. Hurrah.
Happy birthday, Semper Fi.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America
and
and
to the
to the
republic
republic
for which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty,
and
justice for all.
Please pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. Due to the COVID-19 situation, the Borough of Fairhaven's municipal facilities are closed to the public. This meeting is being presented through the Zoom meeting platform and being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this council meeting, November 9th, is available by call-in, phone number, or through web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until public question comment time, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question or comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of this meeting is included in scheduled meetings, was as amended by resolution number 2020-99 and sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, the Hub, and the Star Ledger on January 9, 2020, posted on the Borough website, the bulletin board of the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Borough Clerk is directed to include this statement in the minutes of the meeting. Allison, roll call, please.
Council members Banahan, Christner Keefe,
Here.
Koch,
Here.
McHugh,
Here.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Sorensen.
Here.
Okay. First up, workshop session, tree appeal from River Road Partnership, 759 River Road. With this appeal, has everybody read this?
Mm-hmm.
A little primer. About 15 years ago, the borough did a streetscape project and basically put in the sidewalks and the trees. Since then, these trees have lifted the sidewalk pads, and unfortunately, an individual broke their foot tripping over the lifted pad. The property owner, not wanting to lose their insurance, has requested to remove the trees, which I imagine is their right to remove and or maintain the properties he sees fit and proper. That's the history primer. May open up for any discussion. Does anybody have any feelings about this?
I did invite Steve Gardella to the meeting. I sent him, but I don't see that he's as an attendee or a panelist.
Okay. What I have done, I've spoken, excuse me? All right, so Mr. Gardella is not here, I don't believe. With our streetscape curbs and sidewalks, anticipation of the paving of River Road, we have some room left in that contract for change orders. I've asked Rich Gardella to look into it. The concept, either A, we can grant this tree removal permit and allow the property to remove the trees, which are now mature. And I think this is a signature corner. Or we can come in and underneath the guise of this recent project, remove the concrete pads where they are, which were installed incorrectly because they're too narrow to the tree, create an area around each tree of 5 or 6 feet in diameter, in essence a tree well, and replace the concrete pads. That should enable the trees to remain and provide a smooth surface for the public to walk across.
I think that's a much better option.
Yeah. The other thing is to say you can remove them, but now you have to replace them with other trees, which really doesn't accomplish much.
It
Because
doesn't
you'll
fix the
still wind
sidewalk.
up with the same, pretty much the same area around the tree to make sure they don't lift in the future.
I have a question whether, because the trees were planted by the borough, would the borough be making the changes to the site?
The idea is that within this project, that we have going, we have the ability through a change order and without exceeding the budget, to replace these concrete pads.
Within which project?
This is the concrete sidewalks and curbs for River Road West.
Okay, so so this would just be an additional tiny project that we would add on to that.
We have a couple others, a few other ADA ramps that need to be re-poured in that area of town also.
Do we have
Correct, Rich?
is there an estimate of what that, I'm sorry, is there an estimate of what that might cost?
We have, I don't have a specific estimate for the area around the trees. It is minor in nature, but we have, if and where directed quantity for curb, sidewalk, and aprons to take care of some of the deteriorated sections and the other sections of the streetscape. And that was going to be done as part of this, the capital project we're going to be moving forward with. So the quantity is in that job. It may not necessarily have to be a change order then. The quantity's there already.
Thank you, Rich.
Yep.
Sal can jump in here. One of the issues between now and we get that project done, comes down to liability, because ultimately the liability for commercial property when it comes to trip and falls goes to the owner. And the borough, of course, has exemption from that. We have protections under the law. But I believe the owner is looking for the borough to assume that liability, and Sal can speak to the legalities of that and then what we can do in the meantime, if anything. But we certainly couldn't do that without input from our GIF and our risk manager. Go ahead, Sal.
Sorry, real quick, Councilman Banahan has joined us, just so you're aware.
And Teresa and I did discuss this, and if the council were even to consider it, we would have to get the joint insurance fund and the risk manager to sign off. It's unlikely they will, because why should they incur liability or risk beyond what the law allows? But again, we haven't spoken to them. I think we're looking for guidance from the mayor and council as to how they want to proceed on the whole situation, not just the liability issue.
Mm-hmm.
When do you see that project? The spring?
Yeah.
Rich, when do you see that? You think that work will be done in the spring?
Given that the weather's been very good, we're gonna get started with the Streetscape Project and get as much work as we can until weather shuts us down. There was discussion about taking care of all the areas now, because we're still waiting on the light pole bases to be, built. So I should have that answer within the next few days. Hopefully by the end of this week, we should have a start date.
Very
So,
good.
yeah, I mean, they're ready to go. It's just a matter of, do we run downtown and take care of all those other areas first and then start the actual project? We gotta see what the schedule is. Yeah.
I mean, I think the property owners made some minor repairs to the site. That may or may not be able to get through the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not such a tripping hazard. I think certainly the priority would be to get the curbs in and then come back and get the flat work at a later date.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the main project goes. But Sal, going back to the liability, we certainly don't want to be accepting liabilities of borough, but by performing the work, does that create liability in and upon itself?
If only if the work were done negligently, but not otherwise, no.
Okay. So we could proceed with this. We could preserve the trees. We could fix something that may or not been designed correctly back 15 years ago by the prior engineering firm that was employed by the borough. And we can move on.
I just have one request. Is there a way that we can send the applicant a letter on letterhead letting them know the plan moving forward? I mean, at this point, they're uninsured, it appears, and that's pretty concerning just as a a good neighbor and a
Mhm.
borough property owner that has businesses in Fairhaven, for them to be uninsured is pretty concerning. If one of us or any resident in town or anybody were to hurt themselves, either.
Are they uninsured?
To
Are
the,
Are you sure they're uninsured?
Or
No,
not.
they're insured.
They're
They are
insured?
insured.
they
The-
received a different insurance coverage.
No, they're.
No, they had to
they're
remedy
being
it.
dropped.
Had to remedy it.
My understanding this was the remedy.
If we fix the sidewalk, I think that's the remedy.
Right, but if and until it's fixed.
I don't think they're out of insurance unless they do nothing, but we're doing something, right? I mean, that's,
We're doing something.
I
And-
think they're at
and-
risk
matter of
of
timing.
not getting reapproved, right? If they don't remedy, they won't get reapproved. Did anyone notice when, with the pending liability, they can't get reinsured?
Well, right, because of the open item that they want addressed. The non-renewal letter they attached is dated September 15th. Please be advised, we are sending a procedural non-renewal to preserve our window of opportunity to not renew. The above captioned account, if the sidewalk is not immediately repaired. We will renew account once we have received supporting documentation confirming repairs have been made to the sidewalk. I mean, this is fairly, concerning to our neighbor property owner that has businesses in town and anybody who might walk in that on that property, including ourselves.
agreed. I think we're, by taking action tonight, if we decide to do that, we're taking steps to remedy it.
Hold
Yeah.
on one moment. Steve Gordella is raising his hand. I guess he's
Oh, good.
Oh, great.
Good.
gonna allow him to talk.
Yeah, and my point, Councilman Rodriguez, was simply that we prepare some sort of correspondence letting them know what the borough intends to do and what the timeline looks like so that the insurance company and Mr. Gardella are both, on notice of what's to expect next.
That is in the works.
Great.
Okay, Mr. Cordella? Need to unmute, please, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm the one with the issue with the sidewalk. So I had a hard time getting in, so I just caught the tail end of what you were talking about.
What we're
Okay.
talking about, Steve, is perhaps not approving the removal, but then coming forward with a remedy to replace the sidewalk in a manner that'll keep the concrete pads from lifting and recreating the tripping hazard off into the future. That way the borough gets to preserve the streetscape and you get a new sidewalk and get to keep your insurance.
My only concern is if the tree continues to grow, which it will, that, this problem rears its ugly head in another 5 years.
I have spoken with our borough forester. It appears your problem's created by the fact when the trees were planted, they only allowed about 3 feet diameter from the center of the tree, where that really should be 5 or 6 feet. So if we were to pull the sidewalks back 5 or 6 feet, you and perhaps shave a couple of the roots, you should be fine, he feels, for 10 to 15 years.
So my only concern is if you do something like that, where you dig away from the existing circumference of what's there now, how much sidewalk space is going to be lost? Does it cause, I don't know what your thought is in terms of what it's going to look like. I don't need, something else protruding out of the sidewalk that's going to cause someone to trip over it.
I don't think anybody wants to have that, but I don't know.
Can I share the screen, Allison? I have a picture of it that people can see. If you make me available to pull the screenshot up here.
You should be able to.
Okay.
Down at the bottom. it
Oh,
should-
yeah, I
There's
see it
great.
now. Okay. So it appears that this is 3 feet wide and it would go an extra 1.5 feet on each side and over here. So that will open it up
They
and
haven't
then we
come
would,
up, Chris.
it's not showing?
No,
No.
Oop, hold on. Try that again. So it appears that this is 3 feet wide.
okay,
And we're saying it should go 5 feet wide, so it would expand out. Maybe one of these rungs is a foot wide,
okay,
and then it would come out a foot this way and a foot that way. So now we're at, instead of at 3 feet, we're at 5 feet around. And
okay,
then over here, let's just go over here for a second. We would do the same thing, reset all of this, and then on this slab back here, we would reset this. We would do some root shaving, which further out on the root system,
okay,
shouldn't harm the trees, but then we wouldn't end up clear cutting this entire corner of trees, and we would attempt to save them. I mean, if it doesn't work out, we could take them down ultimately, but we'd rather try to preserve the cityscape or the streetscape here and attempt to expand this circle here. I'm not sure if you guys can see my cursor, but I'm just trying to show you the relative size of what we're talking about.
okay. I mean, that's not going to take much away from the existing sidewalk. You know, I'll work with you guys as much as possible. If you really want to maintain if you want to keep the trees there, you know, I was going to suggest pulling them out and putting something else in there that was more suitable for a sidewalk. But if you think that this is going to resolve the issue, you know, I'm more than willing to let you guys try it.
Wait,
You know, I just need something from the town that's going to, you know, basically indicate that, yes, you are planning on doing this so that I can maintain my insurance. If I can't, I've got to go elsewhere and it's going to cost me double what I'm paying now.
Well, usually when there's something listed under workshop and council makes a motion or a decision, I follow up with some sort of correspondence
Okay.
in conjunction with our attorney if need be, but you will
Okay.
get something from the borough.
I mean, I can just present it to underwriting and see what they say. I mean, that's, you know, I've been working with them and they know that I'm trying to do something. So, you know, hopefully they'll be understanding and let me, you know, maintain my coverage, but it's not guaranteed. I mean, I did hear you guys talking about that when I came in. So, you know, fortunately I'm in the business, so I do know the underwriters. So hopefully they're going to let me, you know, they're going to work with me. But again, I won't know until I present them with everything that I'm going to get. So I would need something if possible from the town. Tomorrow would be ideal because this policy is supposed to renew on the 12th.
But the bottom line is though, we're probably not gonna get to the work until the spring, Mr. Gardella.
No, I understand. I mean, you know, I've already had a mason out there to feather up the tripping hazard. So it's more of a stumble hazard now. So hopefully they'll, you know, they'll let me be, they'll be okay with that until springtime.
Okay, very good. So, would anybody else like to be heard about this issue? Seeing then, we then deny the tree appeal, to remove the trees and go forward with the plan to effect repairs to the sidewalk.
Okay. Is the new sidewalk, is it gonna have, you know, that you can't see it now because it's off the screen, but you know, there is the circle where the tree was coming out.
I'll
So
put it back.
no, that's okay. It's where is it gonna be another circle? Or Ben, I know you would talk maybe about a square planter or something, or
Rich Cordella?
Where, definitely.
Where?
It's more common in a downtown. So that we
Around
can
one?
make it.
the round one?
No, square.
A square
Square.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just as long as it's something that, again, you know, it's not going to be recessed where you're going to step into it and possibly twist an ankle, something that's going to, you know, move people away from it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right, very good.
So you need someone to make the motion, I believe. Right, Allison?
I'll make a
Correct.
motion.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion is to deny the permit.
Yep, and to provide a plan to Mr. Gardella with regard to what we discussed.
Mhm.
Very
Yeah.
good. Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Yeah, I,
All right,
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We'll be getting you some communication, Steve Gardella, and thank you for working with us.
All right, Ben, thank you.
All right.
See you guys later.
Next up is the LED street lighting. Mr. Ralph Windrum. Good evening, Ralph. How are you?
you're on mute.
Ralph,
Unmute
take yourself
please,
off
sir.
mute.
Ralph, you're on mute.
You have to give him a second.
You don't think he's presenting, do you?
No, I think he's looking to unmute himself.
So you hit the screen, Ralph, and then up at the top, you'll see mute and stop video. So hit the mute. It's up at the top. It should be up at the top.
Mine's at the bottom, but
Some are at
All right,
the
mine's at the
top or bottom.
All right, never
all
mind.
depends.
Ralph, similar to what you do when we have the environmental commission meeting.
Uh-oh. Not sure if Ralph's gonna find it. Tell you what. Okay, Ralph, not to worry. While you're looking for that, we want to go on and talk about Monmouth County stigma-free resolution for a moment.
Sure, I'll take this one, Mayor. The governing body received a copy of requests that we received from Monmouth County. The freeholders have passed a resolution declaring Monmouth County a stigma-free community, which basically has to do with mental health not being stigmatized, mental illness not being stigmatized. They ultimately asked the municipalities to please consider passing a similar stigma-free resolution. And it's on the agenda, workshop agenda night at the request of the mayor to ask the governing body members if they'd like to add this to the next agenda for your approval.
Can you hear me now?
We
Yes,
got you, Ralph. We went to the next item on workship, but hold right there.
We're
We'll be
right
back
back
to
to
you
you, Ralph.
momentarily.
That's fine, no problem.
Outstanding. All right.
And you all have a copy of the draft or the proposed resolution. Just want to make sure that the mayor wanted to make sure that everyone was on board with putting this on for adoption at the next meeting.
Is everybody good with the stigma-free resolution?
yes.
Terrific. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
That
now
being taken care of.
back to Ralph. I'll give him a good intro. Everyone knows Ralph. He's the chair of our environmental commission. He has been a outstanding volunteer for the Borough of Fairhaven. He's a retired engineer, and his knowledge is quite proficient in all things, particularly all things light related. And he's been working with the environmental commission and with JCP&L to come up with a plan to do some testing of LED lighting throughout the community. And I'll turn it over to Ralph to give a listing or give his update on that and to talk about where he'd like to get this done for the governing body.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Teresa. The Environmental Commission has looked at the street lighting and particularly the 49 or 50 incandescent lights as an enormous waste of energy, not including just the money, but the energy that's being wasted. and somewhat poorer lighting than we could otherwise have. I think you all know that if you get a 60-watt equivalent lamp in today in the store for your home, it costs you 10 watts to operate it. If you go to street lights, the ratio is not 6-to-1, but 4-to-1, primarily because of color differences and because of the amount of lumens that reach the street 20 feet below the light. What we're proposing to do for a variety of reasons is to have a field trial, if you will, of a dozen 12 streetlights installed in Fairhaven at strategic points. And we have chosen the strategic points, for example, to be low residential areas, low density residential areas. We want to make sure that these lights don't annoy people. We want to have high traffic intersections well covered. We want to have areas out of public buildings such as schools, churches, and the like tested to find out if the lighting is adequate. And so we've put together a list of actually 14 locations to give JCPL a little leeway in where what they place. They've agreed to put in 12 of these with new arms, new street light arms, and new lights, totally free to us. The installation will cost nothing. There is a savings, as you can imagine, that we will get. But I have to tell you that the largest part of what is actually paid by the bills that we pay to JCPL probably are not the light, but the maintenance, the installation, the amortization, and all of that. So you're not going to get 4-to-1 savings, or probably much more than a 20% saving, 25% saving. Still nice and very good that we're saving the energy. I've provided a list of the proposed light stations, locations. And if Allison, if you wanted to put it on the screen, you could, and you'll get the feeling for it. It doesn't replace just incandescents. The reason is that the incandescents were not placed where we wanted to test everything. So maybe half of them are incandescent, and the rest of them are either the mercury lights that are being replaced as they burn out. Thank you, Allison. The mercury lights as they burn out, or the yellow sodium lights. The sodium lights are particularly good in fog. That's why you have yellow fog lamps on automobiles, and they deliver many more lumens to the street in foggy conditions. So we are testing 2 or 3 sites in foggy conditions to see how they're doing with the new street lights. The list, now you have to know that I'm going blind, and so that's why you've been seeing me drive around town in a tricycle, which won't go over 15 miles an hour, and why right now, if you're looking at me, I'm using a magnifying glass to read the screen. But on the screen here, we have the locations on the left, the street locations. We have the pole numbers, so the Jersey Central Power and Light will attack the right poles. We have proposed lighting, which I think I'm going to modify most of them back to medium and some to low, having looked at the effectiveness of 50-watt LED lights. And then the rationale for the choice of location on the right. Give you a chance to look at it, but I don't think there's any surprises here. There are 14 of them, as I said. What we hope to do is to put out some publicity in the weekly reports, the weekly Fairhaven notices that go out online, telling people that they will see some new lights around town, and we welcome their comments. We also welcome the comments of people who live near the lights. We're putting in 2 lights very close to my own home, and 2 very close to Brian Rice's home. We're also putting in, if I don't know if Joe McCarthy's at this meeting. Joe McGovern, I'm sorry. I don't know if Joe is at this meeting. Is he?
Yes. Yes, he's on.
Okay, Joe, you chose 2 lights to monitor. One in the back by the courts and one across the street from the police headquarters. So we'll have a number of people who are credible to tell us how these are doing. I think you all know that the police department reports, and this was a result of a much earlier committee that Richard Huff and I were on, and in improving the energy efficiency of the borough buildings, maybe 5 to 7 years ago now. But the police department reports on a daily basis to JCPL when a light has burned out. We had as many as 20 to 25 lights burned out. We discovered that point in time by driving around and trying to understand where we could save energy. And as Richard Huff quipped to me, he says, well, it looks like we're already saving energy with 20-some lights out. So police have been reporting these. They've been replaced. I don't think, Joe, tell me if I'm wrong, but from going around as I have with Brian and others, I don't believe that there are more than 3 or 4 lights out at any point in time. And that's kind of a nice thing. So we have 49 incandescent lights. The plan would be that 6 of them or 7 of them would be replaced by this field trial. If everything works as I expect it will, then we would first of all replace all the other incandescent lights with the appropriate size of LED. And from this field trial, we'll have a very good understanding of what the appropriate size is. In the incandescent lights, they're mainly 105 watts or 205 watts. The LEDs will probably be largely 50 watts. The largest might be 90 watts for a high traffic intersection. Now, I've done one other thing. I've contacted JCPL, but also contacted PSE&G, because PSE&G has put in more LEDs. They're making a practice of putting them in. They're way ahead of JCPL from what I can tell, what they tell me. And so I've gone to I've talked to one of the towns, boroughs that are served by PSE&G, Hamilton. They've had no negative responses, in fact, no responses at all. It was as if nothing happened, the borough manager said. And I've talked to the borough manager in Spring Lake Heights, Teresa, who says hello to you. John Braddock, is it?
John Barrett.
Brannon?
Barrett.
Well, at any rate, he says hello to you and wishes you well with this project. He has been putting them in, and he has found no comments at all from the public. So that could be good or bad, not an improvement, or maybe the public wouldn't respond if it were. That's about the message that I have. I would expect this would happen in the December to February time frame. It was all put on hold when COVID came around, and we've had a 6-month halt until now, and they're willing to start up again. So I will encourage any questions to be asked right now, and I'll try to answer them.
I guess my first question is the Kelvin temperature of the lights. Is there just one standard Kelvin that they put out, or they allow you to choose?
There's 3 of them.
Okay. And
I don't know the numbers exactly. There are 3 of them ranging from the smallest to the largest.
Because I think back in the residential neighborhoods, something in the 3,000 range.
Well,
appropriate.
Yeah,
And then-
I misspoke. I'm sorry, Ben, I misspoke. Right now, there is one, and it's the daylight tower,
Okay, it's about 4,000 Kelvin.
about 4,000, yeah.
Okay.
There are 3 available, but JCPL does not offer them.
Gotcha. So just the 4,000, which is white. So that's the.
Which is a bluish white.
Yep.
It's not quite as bluish white as our mercury lights,
Mhm.
having looked at them.
Yes, very good. Does anybody in the council wish to be heard about this?
No.
No, I think, Ralph, as always, thank you so much for your thorough and diligent work. I think this is a very good initiative that you and the Environmental Commission have taken on, and we truly appreciate it and ask you to proceed with all due haste.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ben. Thank you all.
You're quite
Thanks,
welcome.
Ralph.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay.
Ralph.
Hey, Ralph.
Okay,
Should I
Next up-
stick around for any
May,
questions from the public or not?
certainly feel free to do so.
Oh, the question was, should I?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Mayor, I do have something to add to the workshop.
oh, yes.
The lawn signs for Fairhaven, actually I have 2 things, both lawn signs. Fairhaven Business Association would like to have lawn signs to celebrate their Shop Small Saturday, which is going to be every Saturday from, instead of just the one day, that's the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend, it's going to be from Thanksgiving weekend through Christmas. To help stimulate business for them. So they want to put lawn signs out. So may I make does anybody have any questions? It would be the normal amount of lawn signs that they do for the period of time. And once the event is over, they do a very good job of picking them all back up.
And they want to put a banner at the entrance to Fairhaven.
Excuse me, you're right. And a banner at the entrance like they do every year.
Good.
From Red Bank to Fairhaven.
Yep.
That
I'm good
field.
with it.
I shrank it.
Any of the council people wish to be heard?
I have one small associated question. Are they doing the trolley or is that out?
No.
with COVID?
No,
They're not.
they are not. They might be doing something along the lines of a scavenger hunt or something like that, but they're just doing Shop Small Saturday for multiple Saturdays.
Thanks.
Right. Well,
So
good.
that's,
That's
so
one.
do we need to do a vote or something?
No,
Allison,
need a motion, we're waiting on a second.
we have a motion.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
And then Mayor, I'm sorry, something came over late. It's there's gonna be a blood drive at the Knights of Columbus on Veterans Day. And they have like 5 signs they want to put up. They're more directional signs, and they will put them up in the morning and take them down at night, that night. And if anybody wants to sign up for it, you can go to their website and I'll send the information over, and Betty Ann can send it up. But they're really asking people to also make an appointment. But anyway, there's a blood drive on Veterans Day, so they want to know if they could have lawn signs as well, or signs,
We
directional
have a
signs.
motion.
Motion.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We
right,
are the
thank
land,
you.
we are the land of lawn signs.
Yes, we
Okay.
are.
Public
And-
comments on agenda items.
didn't you say bye?
Motion to open.
Second,
Okay, to the public. Anybody wish to be heard? On agenda items, we have 17 folks. I have one hand up.
Steve Gardella.
Gardella, you can
Steve
unmute
Gardella.
yourself and speak.
Yeah, it's unrelated. It's just one quick question I forgot to ask. Do I need a permit to have my trees trimmed?
Not to trim them, to remove them.
Okay, all right.
You can trim as need be.
Okay, that's, all right, I will have
But
it
you-
do it. Thank you.
You probably shouldn't have them trimmed until the spring. Till you start leafing out, otherwise they'll bleed in the spring. Hopefully
Okay.
you got that. Okay,
Mr. Kalataki Bailey, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Mood, okay, can you hear me?
yes,
Yes.
Okay, it's unrelated, but it's extremely important for me right now. Do you have a rabies clinic this year?
It was supposed to be held last week due to COVID. They decided not to do it. And there is no plan. Betty Ann was trying to get an alternate date, but it's just a really tough time to do it.
Okay.
I have a regional health commission meeting tomorrow, and I'll double check with them to see if they plan on rescheduling it.
Okay, yeah, I've been trying to watch it every day, whether you will have it or not. Will you put it on our emails, or how do I find out?
It'll probably be blasted, put on our website. It was supposed to be last Wednesday. I really don't foresee, they canceled a lot of them. Little Silver was about 2 weeks ago,
Uh-huh.
and it was kind of like a drive-through.
Yeah,
Pull up-
well, whichever, I don't care how it is done, but my dog needs it.
Teresa, if you're going to the meeting tomorrow, can you get a list of those that are in the area, an updated list, and maybe we could post it even if it's a couple times away?
Yes, Susan, I wrote a note for that, and I will certainly check into that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody.
You're quite welcome. Would anybody else like to be heard on public comments on agenda items?
No, Bill Perkins?
Mr. Bill Perkins.
His hand went down. Maybe he changed his mind.
I didn't see it.
He popped up and looks like he hopped off.
He's still on. Mr. Perkins, do you still want to be heard?
There he is.
Unmute. I just had to unmute myself.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Yes, sir.
2 questions on the consent agenda items. One on the consent agenda item 199 for capital projects. I just wanted some more detail on the lawn equipment for $30-something thousand, and the other was on the fire department wash dryer for $24,000. And then my question.
I'll take the washer and dryer, sir. That request was made by our fire department to be able to launder their turnout gear. The OSHA requirements have changed, and the frequency for which they need to launder that gear, along with COVID considerations, makes it much more practical and economical for the fire department to install a commercial washer and dryer. The fire department and the borough have a good working relationship, and the borough agreeing to pay for the washer and dryer as a capital expenditure, and the fire department is going to absorb the expense of having it installed, which I believe is around $7,000. They've already voted to go ahead and authorize that. I'll let Rich Gardella, our borough engineer and DPW director, comment on the lawn equipment. He can give you a little more detail on that since he's on the.
Teresa, thank you. Okay. There's no detail, so I just want to know what we're purchasing for that $30,000 for lawn equipment. $40,000 we're getting a truck and whatever, but $30-something thousand, it doesn't say anything other than lawn equipment. So
It's, hi, this is Rich. I'm the borough engineer. About 5 years ago, we purchased lawn equipment, similar nature. It was 2 commercial grade lawn mowers. This is to replace those because we do a lot of cutting throughout the borough, many of the months throughout the year. So 2 lawn mowers plus the necessary attachments to do like the fall cleanups with leaf collection.
okay.
So they're about $15,000 each, and then $2,000 in accessories. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much. My other question was regarding consent agenda item 200. It talks about the fee for the architect attached in Appendix A, but there's obviously no Appendix A. I was just wondering what the fee is for the architect.
Teresa?
I can tell you that the architect submitted 2 separate proposals. One was for the PD building in the amount of $279,000, I believe. I can pull it out exactly. And also a second one for the proposed possible recreation building. One of the things that I might as well take it now, prior to the consent agenda, I was going to inform the governing body that we are going to have to pull that resolution tonight because I sent an email to the mayor and the facilities committee and spoke to Sal earlier today because ultimately we don't have enough money left in ordinance 2017-17 in the soft cost portion of that ordinance. When they passed the ordinance and they were to set up hard costs for, we have about $5.5 million for facilities improvements in hard costs, if you think of hard costs like brick and mortar. And then the soft costs are everything that would be, consultants, engineers, studies, surveys, all of those things that aren't brick and mortar. And we talked about this in executive session last week and did get the proposals from the architect for the direction in which the facilities committee is looking to go, and they spoke to at the last meeting. We basically have two options that the governing body can make a determination on. We can either have bond council either amend the original ordinance, which was 2017-07, or we can have and reallocate the hard cost to soft cost, or he can prepare an ordinance that will cover the estimated preliminary soft costs for all three buildings. That's really something that bond council would weigh in on and give us the best direction. The other alternative, bond ordinances take 2 meetings. So we'd have to have that introduced on the 23rd and adopted in our December meeting. In lieu of that, if the governing body prefers, at the next meeting, we can go ahead and give the authorization to encumber at least enough soft cost funding to take us through February of 2021, in which time you will have to amend or reintroduce a bond ordinance in January to cover the anticipated soft costs. So that's basically what was on the agenda. It does have to be pulled for the reasons, and I'll wait till we get, I guess, closer to the resolution time, and the governing body can then ask questions or give me some direction on which avenue they would rather pursue.
Okay. Teresa, just in follow-up, the $279,000, that's the fee for the PD, for the police department. What was the fee for the recreation building?
It was
$257.
yes, this was $279,950 for the PD, and then for the recreation building, one second. It was, sorry,
I show 248 basic fee and 9,000 expenses, 257.
right, 257.
Right. And how much of that have we paid already in fees?
For those, for work that's been done, we paid a $17,500 off of our last meeting for PD work. And I'm actually holding 2 invoices that we have to pay. One in the amount, they total $29,194 in total.
Pending fees, okay.
And then the architect is scheduled to attend a meeting of the facilities committee on this Wednesday night, 11/11, and there will be some fees associated with him and the site engineer participating in that meeting.
Great, okay. Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Anybody wish to be heard? Public comments on agenda items?
Don't see anything else, Mayor.
Seeing none, may I have a motion to close?
So moved.
Okay. Next up, approval of minutes, June 8th, 2020, regular meeting. May I have a motion to offer?
Your Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend.
Okay. Just first we make a motion to offer, then we make a motion to amend?
Sure.
Okay. So a motion to offer?
So moved.
Okay, discussion. Would you like to make a motion to amend?
I would like to make a motion to amend.
And what would your amendment be?
Based on our conversations at the last meeting, and surrounding the decision of the governing body to not include documents within the scope of minutes. I would like to move to amend the June 8th, 2020 minutes as they initially existed to remove the memo that included from myself to the governing body that would remove the memo that included Teresa's comments. And I would request that an amendment be drafted by the borough clerk to reflect further conversations that occurred in the absence of the memo, or that summarized generally more of the statement that I had made concerning the memo that evening.
Okay. So you would like other, understood, other comments that were made during the meeting to be included in that.
Yeah, and if I could be more clear, in the minutes at, I guess it's like the bottom third of page 8 through the middle of page 12 would be the removal of the memo. And if you follow what would be left, it would simply be a 1 or 2 sentence capture summarizing the memo, and then jumps to Mayor Lucarelli thanked Councilwoman Christner Keefe, and then goes on to address everybody's comments responsive to my memo, each governing body member's comments responsive to my memo. So I would just ask that the borough clerk, with her great expertise and skill in creating our minutes, do an amendment to remove the memo based on our conversations of the last meeting and include any additional summary that she thinks is appropriate regarding my comments regarding as I was introducing the memo itself.
Sounds fair enough. So we will be tabling the minutes of June 8th to be returned at our next meeting, which I believe is the 23rd. Removing your memo, but then adding additional dialogue as the clerk sees fit to properly reflect the meeting.
Do you need a second on that?
I think we have second. Sal, or
Yeah.
Allison?
You could second it. And also, Allison, do you have what Councilwoman Christner Keefe said? You understood that?
I understand it. I have the recording from the meeting.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so just have a second to table it, and then it will be carried to the next meeting.
Second.
Okay, roll call or in all favor?
All in favor?
All bears.
Aye.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
October 13th, thank you. October 13th, 2020 regular meeting, and October 13th.
They're both
2020
October 26th, Mayor. I sent you a revised agenda.
Excuse me. So October 6th.
26.
26.
October 6th, 2020.
October
Motion to offer.
26th.
2020.
October 6th, 2020. I've got it. That's conflicting, but I think we have it now. May I have a motion to offer?
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Council members Banahan,
Yes.
Christner Keefe,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
McHugh,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Sarnes.
Yes.
Okay, old business, hearing adoption of ordinance 2020-12, bond ordinance for general capital. May I have a motion to open?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, would anybody like to be heard about bond ordinance for general capital?
Mayor, I have a point of order. Is this an appropriate time for discussion?
Yes, so we just opened discussion on bond ordinance general capital.
Great. I'd like to discuss, but if anybody else has something to say first.
No, you're going.
Oh, great. Okay. So I reviewed the bond ordinance and I believe, understand the purposes of it, and I believe them to be purposes for capital needs that are important. And just for the benefit of the public listening in who hasn't reviewed this in detail, it relates to the acquisition of a street sweeper, and then also relates to various road projects, including drainage, curbs, sidewalks, et cetera, and specifies certain locations throughout the borough, but also says included but not limited to in case other areas of more import came about. I guess one of my primary questions on this is the reason for bonding for these monies. And I understand the idea and concept of bonding for capital improvements. I question whether that's the appropriate step right now, and I'm not on the finance committee, so I'm glad to hear from them. When I'm looking at our CFO's September report on investment, the general capital cash balance has $7.7 million in it. And although some of that or much of that is earmarked, I believe this is what she shared with me, was 5.5 million was for facilities that, I guess I'm concerned that we're bonding for things when we have some cash on hand, and where is that inflection point where we'll spend the cash on hand versus bonding for it?
I'll take this, Mayor. This is a bond ordinance, a bond authorization. The CFO is not going to go out and borrow this money. The borough at this juncture has cash on hand. The CFO monitors our cash flow at any given time and would only bond or issue notes should the borough need the cash. In the proper authorization of any spending, the governing body's first step is to pass the bond ordinance, which allows not only the governing body, but the public to see what's being authorized. And charges to, for argument's sake, for some of these road projects, might not take place for 6 months or a year down the road, but there might be smaller things that go along with that, like surveys or things along those natures that the CFO, once this bond ordinance passes and the estoppel period, the 20-day estoppel period is up, will set this up in our capital fund, but will not go out and borrow this money because there's no need to borrow the money at this juncture. But we have to have a place a process for the governing body to do an authorization first, and then a place to charge anything once that bond ordinance is set up. It gives the public also, as part of this process, the right to weigh in as part of this public hearing to say, I don't think we need a street sweeper. And maybe the governing body may change their mind on that authorization and may not move forward with it. Any of these authorizations that are sitting here now, or you're looking at in this bond ordinance, there will be an additional step for the governing body to take in the form of approving a bid, or in the case of the street sweeper, it'll be a purchase authorization if it goes through a co-op, and there'll be a second ability to for the governing body to approve what is actually going to be spent against this. And if the governing body, for argument's sake, decides for whatever reason not to move forward with some of these projects, ultimately you would cancel the authorization in the future.
Yeah, so Teresa, I appreciate that explanation. I feel like I'm missing a piece of information then, because in my conversation with the CFO about this, I talked about, if we have cash on hand, can we choose to spend it in lieu of going out on a bond ordinance? And I realized that it just gives her the ability to secure the funds. It doesn't automatically do it. But again, if you're saying we have the cash on hand, are we putting the cart before the horse with a bond ordinance versus spending the money? And I'm not saying we shouldn't have a slush fund. I think that can be very important, especially as it relates to capital needs that can come up. I'm just, again, continuing to try to understand the way that our capital is functioning, and maybe there needs to be more of a shift to focus on using cash. And I know that we have every year the budgeted capital of the 215 that we spend, and it looks like tonight we're going to be authorizing some of that spending, but that still leaves money left over. And so again, I asked the question, and maybe Councilman Rodriguez or Banahan can speak to it as to, on finance committee, why we would not be pursuing some or any of this with cash versus going forth with the bond. And I mean, quite honestly, Colleen Lapp did explain that you did not have to bond for this if you wanted to just simply authorize it.
Yeah, we're at historic low lending rates, and we're at historic high credit rating for this town. And it makes sense to give ourselves the optionality. We wouldn't want to deplete our capital reserves in the event that we needed it. So this makes the most sense. I don't want to talk for Jim, but it made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, thank you.
I think if we were to,
That's essentially it. When you have the opportunity to bond, and one of the principles behind bonding for capital is that it matches the life, the economic life of whatever it is that you're bonding for. You always leave that option open, and burning down your cash is never the first route that you would take. So we're in a very good position. We're just about to retire a 10-year bond, and paying that bond on time is one of the things that contributes to the bond rating that Councilman Rodriguez just referred to. So the conventional thinking is to do exactly what we're doing, which is we preserve our cash and we bond for any of these capital improvements that have this longer term life. That's the basic idea, that you match your bond to the life of the asset. So
And just as an example here, in this particular bond ordinance, 51, our capital improvement fund will be reduced by $51,800 because we have to have cash on hand as a down payment. And that would be the same for any future bond ordinances that the governing body wanted to do that were related to large facilities projects. You have to have your capital improvement fund at a level where you can put the down payment that's required by law as part of any bond ordinance.
Yeah,
Sure,
all projects require a deposit.
Right. I appreciate that. And I just think that, when I think about that in other conceptual ways, I think $51,800 out of 2.2 million is a small amount out of a big chunk. And I believe if we do end up approving the bond ordinance we just spoke about in connection with the architect, that will be the third bond ordinance for the year. Is that correct?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
I think
I
we
would think
also
so, yeah.
canceled a bond ordinance relating to Sunoco as well. I'm not sure if you're keeping score, and I don't mean that in a snarky way.
Yes,
I think it's
And
important.
that's done. That's done by resolution, but ultimately the cancellation of what was authorized for land can take place by resolution.
But it has not yet.
No,
Is that upcoming on an upcoming agenda, or we don't know yet?
I reached out to bond counsel, the time it was such, honestly, I thought it was something that he was going to draft for the borough, because I've never canceled a bond ordinance. But he's just got back to us maybe even last week to say that it can be done by resolution. Doesn't have to be done by him, by ordinance.
Okay. Just bigger picture, I think it's really important we continue to be super conscious of our finances and our debt, and not that a bond ordinance is creating debt, but it provides the mechanism through which we're authorizing the debt to occur. So I think it's really important that we continue to monitor that going forward. And I appreciate the finance committee's sense on this.
well, thank you, Megan. We have been for the last dozen or so years or longer. That's why we have a AA+ credit rating. Anybody else wishes to be heard? Seeing none, motion to close discussion.
Motion,
So moved.
Okay, motion to offer.
So moved.
second,
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Spanahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Keefe,
Yes.
Koch,
yes.
McHugh,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Okay, new business, council committee reports, finance, Councilman Banahan.
Well, let's see. Thanks to Mr. Perkins, we've pretty much gone through everything in great detail. And with respect to the bond ordinance that's on for tonight, I think we've gone through the details on that one as well. Also happy to report collections remain same as last year. We're at about 75%. So any of the concerns about COVID and our tax collections are fully set aside by that figure.
And fourth quarter's coming in fast and furious these days.
And we did have a productive finance committee meeting last week. And we obviously discussed the capital considerations that are on tonight's agenda, but also looked at some other items that would impact the 2021 budget. And we are pleased. Our revenue is not nearly as dire as we thought it might be when COVID first hit. Particularly, I mean, we're definitely off in court, but many of our other revenues are coming in close to what we had anticipated. Now, we did reduce the anticipation because at the time we adopted the budget, we knew COVID was coming, so they're off of what we anticipated in the prior year, but we're at least hitting the number that we had, the reduced number that we had put into this year's budget.
Okay. Very good. Personnel, Councilman Christopher Keefe.
I will mention that in conjunction with the governor's recent executive order, the borough has a new COVID policy, and thankfully things are continuing to go well in that respect. And that's all I have to add for personnel.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning, Councilman Koch.
Thank you, Mayor. Planning Board, we did not have a meeting last month as there were no applications pending. The same again for this month. The Planning Board right now has no pending applications. So whether or not we have a meeting has yet to be decided. The Zoning Board will meet this Thursday. There are 3 pending applications.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Police, Fire, and OEM, Councilman McHugh.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Just short and sweet, we're obviously entering our second or third wave, whichever, losing track at this point, but our town is continuing to do relatively well. Stay vigilant or stay, on the defense, especially with Thanksgiving. All in all, we've had 73 since the start, and we are at 10 active. We've pretty much been holding the line. Hopefully we keep that up. The chief will put out a notice recommendations for Thanksgiving, just sitting in on some of those OEM meetings from the county. Our college age students are the majority of COVID cases, with about 40% of them being asymptomatic. So I think the chief will suggest testing prior to coming home, and just be conscious with the holidays coming up. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Engineering, DPW, and Borough Facilities, Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. We had already discussed the pickup truck for the DPW. There's also equipment for OEM that we've looked into along with the DPW equipment. We've also gotten information back from the survey for the brush grinding site and the process of picking up brush. Councilwoman Koch and I have not connected yet, but we will this week about those results, and we'll convene another committee meeting. But before I go any further, I just want to give Councilwoman Koch a moment if she wants to say anything about that.
I think we need to get our committee together, summarize the results, and distribute them.
Okay. And then we've had bulk pickup, I think today actually, and that was extended because we had missed a couple of pickups during the early stages of COVID. Hopefully people took advantage of that. And that's about it. We haven't had a, I'm sorry, one more thing. We haven't had a facilities meeting. We did have a finance committee meeting last week. I believe we'll convene a facilities meeting shortly with the new members that were assigned to that committee in the last meeting. So
That's
we have a number.
That's this Wednesday, Councilman,
Yeah.
on the 11th.
Yep.
Veterans Day.
Yep, Veterans Day. Okay, thank you very much. And then Parks, Recreation, Communications, Councilman Sorensen.
Hi, just short and sweet. Don't forget that Veterans Day is this week, and it is virtual, and you'll have access to the link I think, Allison, I think it's Wednesday, the link goes live, I believe,
Yes.
to watch the ceremony. And we've got some great speakers, and it is really well done. Thank you to DJ and Breckenridge, as well as Robert Tyler Breckenridge for putting it together, and all of our speakers. And then also the winners of all the Halloween contests have been named. The link went out. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to go to our website or reach out to Borough Hall or click on the link. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Introduction to ordinance 2020-13, create ordinance authorizing tax exemption for disabled veterans.
So
May I have a
moved.
motion? May I have a
So
second?
moved.
Councilmembers Banahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Keith,
Yes.
Koch,
Yes.
McHugh,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda item, resolutions. Yes,
Mayor,
here,
public hearing will be when, Allison?
The 23rd.
23rd. Thank you. Sal, I always jump ahead on that one.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Consent agenda resolutions 2020-196 through 2020-202, removing 2020-200.
Right.
All right,
So moved.
Second.
roll call.
Councilmembers Banahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Keith, Koch,
Yes.
McHugh,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Okay, department
Mayor,
report.
excuse me, Mayor, before we go any further, I did want to get a feeling from the governing body members, how they wanted to proceed with the earmarking funds, the soft cost funds for the facilities projects, whether or not they wanted to attempt to introduce an ordinance at the next meeting and adopt it before year end, or whether they just want to encumber those funds in a projection that will take us through what's available to be utilized between now and, I'm going to say, the end of February, and then deal with the bond ordinance in the new year. It doesn't matter to me.
What
I
I'd
just
like to
need
do
some
is
guidance.
this, since the agenda is my purview. I'd like to put it on the 23rd workshop session, have the ordinance prepared and ready to go. If we can get through the workshop session in general agreement, then we'll proceed with the bond ordinance at that time. You know, unfortunately, look, we want to keep the projects moving forward. We're all in agreement, I believe, that the police station and DPW need to be replaced. And we cannot really move ahead in good faith with our architect if we don't have the proper vehicle to finance the payments. So Teresa and Allison, please place it on the next workshop session, and please have an ordinance ready to be introduced if we can have a consensus amongst the council.
And then I'll have an alternate resolution available that night if the ordinance doesn't get introduced.
Yes. Okay. Department reports, October 2020, municipal clerk, dog license, planning and zoning board, and I think we already did the budget status. The report, motion to accept.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Go to the borough. Please use the raise a hand feature. Identify yourself clearly by stating your name and address for the record. And please observe a time limit of 3 minutes. Who would like to be heard?
I've
Ed,
got
Motion to
Keith-
open. Motion to open.
This is
we have a
where-
motion open. Thank you.
Second.
We are open. D. Fernandez. Good evening.
Hi, this is Dennis, 75 Cedar Avenue.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk about the plan for the police department and the recreational area.
Mm-hmm.
The first point I wanted to bring up was I looked at the plans, and currently there is a wall to practice tennis, and there is no mention of that wall in that plan. It's just behind the police department.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a very important thing to have in the community, because especially when we have like COVID going on right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's a place where you can go, and I have personally used it a lot. I've seen kids around town use it, and I think it is very important to have that. When
Very
you're
good.
physical distancing, I think that wall is very important.
Okay, very nice amenity to have. We will take note of that. And in our facilities committee meeting on Wednesday night, we will work that into the conversation, Mr. Fernandez.
Thanks. The second point regarding the plans was I also see that the tennis courts have been removed, and a place has been made for extra parking on 3rd Street, and also an indoor, I don't know, basketball court or recreational area.
Yep. Call it a field house. Yes, the tennis courts there are no longer suitable for play. They've hit their end of their useful life, and in so much that we now have 5 tennis courts at Fairhaven Fields. It was felt that those 2 were not needed or needed to be repaired. So that's how we're handling that.
But if I may, so I played over the summer at the Fairhaven Fields, and it's open to all residents who can reserve courts, and the courts are pretty much booked all the time. And in the fall, when the school team starts playing, it's pretty much impossible to get. I mean, they're booked from like 3 to 7 in the evening. So there's no way for people to play on those 5 courts, and making space for an indoor area and taking away from some actual, like a sport playing field. I disagree with that. Like, and because the indoor area is also going to come with other things that would have to be considered. First of all, it's indoors, so you're increasing your carbon footprint there, and you're also because it's indoors. If it has to be like manned by some personnel, if people are going to be using the facility, else it's just going to be locked. So that's going to add more overhead there to have an indoor facility in that area. And I think the town would be more benefited by having tennis courts there and an outdoor basketball court that is already there. And I don't see the need for 28 parking spots, like, especially when 3rd Street, we are trying to say 3rd Street is good for biking for kids and for across town. And we want to reduce the traffic on that street. And by introducing a parking lot for 28 cars, it goes against what we're trying to do on 3rd Street.
Well, okay. I understand your thoughts. I disagree somewhat with the need for the parking, because we do have overflow parking or too much parking on 3rd Street when it's baseball season and the baseball fields are used. But your comments about the tennis courts are duly noted and will be taken into consideration. And the field house is yet to be decided upon, but we are working towards developing that alternative as an amenity for the borough. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it. Ruth Blazer, RB.
Ruth, just unmute yourself.
It didn't pop up. I'm sorry.
There we are.
Here we are. I want to go back to what Meg Christner-Keefe said about the borrowing, the authorization and whatever. I don't know about you, but when a mortgage is paid off, what a great feeling it is. We just keep rolling over. We never get that feeling. And I don't think, because if you have authorized this money, I think you are more likely to spend it than be careful and not spend it. I think you should have to come to us for everything because it's our money, unless you guys are paying for all this. The second thing, I was talking about what Mr. Fernandez just said, the field house and the basketball court. We have a basketball court at Knollwood. We have a basketball court at Sickles. Why do we need another one?
That was the sentiment of the committee.
Pardon me?
That was the idea of the committee to come up with that idea.
Well, I think if we are going to spend the money and if we're going to use the space, we should use it proactively, looking down the road to see if there's something else we're going to need and be prepared for it.
Mhm.
Also, something that I have never gotten an answer to is why in these plans for the DPW and the police department, in the beginning, when these were being spoken about, it was mentioned that we were going to sell these lots. Now, all of a sudden, nobody wants to sell these lots, and I want to know why.
Not
It'll
part of the plans.
Make our borrowing cheaper.
We don't have an answer for you on that one right now. It's just not up for consideration at this point.
I think it's
Well,
fair to
I-
say that until we decide where we're putting the building, particularly the DPW building, they can't even consider how many lots and where those lots would be available to sell.
Well, they're all going to be, I would say, for the zone they're in, they're all going to be about the same size. So you can pretty much figure what you've got left over. I think the only change would be the addition of that access driveway to the drop-off recycling. That would add, what, another 10 feet? I just think that in the interest, the fiscal interest of the community, you should try to spend as little as possible. And that includes interest on bonds and things like that. Final comment. Thanks, Susan Sorensen, for working with the PTA and whatever to get those scarecrows taken down almost overnight.
I had nothing to do with it. I'd love to take credit, but I had nothing to do with it.
They did a really good job.
No, but thanks. I'll let them
Thank you,
know.
Ruth. And there's the 3 minutes. Okay, anybody else wishes to be heard? Seeing none, motion to close.
So moved.
Okay, terrific. We're going into executive session. Ladies and gentlemen, for those who have participated and just attended and listened, we thank you very much for your participation in the democracy. We'll be going to executive session. Action will not be taken. We'll have a good evening. Will the council members please mute and turn off their video cameras and join us on the conference call? All right. We've got Allison. There's Teresa. We have a quorum. Wonderful.
Motion to close.
Motion to closed.
Second.
Second.
Second. That's it. Everybody,
Night.
thank you very much. Good meeting
Night.
tonight. Very productive.
all.
Night, everyone.
Yep.
Be
Thank
well.
you. Bye now.